Hey YouTube, have you ever wanted a Les Paul style guitar but one that has Les Paul in it? Well, I didn't even come up with this idea. This actually was listed as a Les, L-E-S-S, Paul on eBay. And I know it's just a little simple, mix-up, but it just tickled me. And this is actually a Silvertone. Now they had Silvertone because it's up there, but this is a Samick era Silvertone model SSL1. And it is a really unusual cat. Let me tell you, it is similar to Les Paul, but they've done some unusual and interesting things to it. So what this video will do is, first I'm just going to run down like a brief review of the guitar itself, but the emphasis of this video is going to be on like this seller, nice seller and everything. I don't mean to poke too much fun. Very nice seller and very quick. They shipped it to me and everything, but they clearly didn't know that much about guitars, and it was in rough condition, and that it was, just kind of crusty and rusty, and there's some still working the rust out, and like it had probably spent a lot of time in a closet or something. I'm not sure the journey. This is a 2003, so I don't know what happened in the last 21 years between its inception and here. But what I have now is a very cheap guitar. Very cheap guitar. I paid right at $100 for this with shipping, and part of that was that they shipped it with the neck off. This is a bolt-on, and they unbolted the neck. They did a very good job of packaging the bolts and everything. So again, I don't want to poke too much fun at the seller because they did a very good job selling. It's just they're clearly not guitar people in the same sense that probably you are and I am. So I got this out of the box. Since the neck was already off, the strings were already off, and everything, I just went about light buffing on the body. And what this video is going to do, in addition to just tell you about this particular guitar, is run through the steps that I take when I get a new guitar. And particularly for those of you out there that are like, maybe because you can find these on eBay, or you can find them in pawn shops and stuff, where you're like, I'm pretty sure that's a cool guitar, but it's rough, it's crusty, the lighting isn't good, I can't really make out this or that detail on it, but it's so cheap, and you're like, should I make a go of it? Should I click order? Should I make a bid or whatever? And I've done a lot of that. I really enjoy doing that. And as part of the reason why I have gear acquisition syndrome is it's not just the gear. I also enjoy the hunt and the process of finding a really cool, older instrument that's rough, but when you clean it up and do a few things to it and polish it up, you have a really tremendous guitar. I would recommend you, one of my first videos when I was just starting the channel, and I was like, I'm just going to do some guitar videos, and I was planning to make the studio anyway, and we'll see what happens. When I was still at that stage, I did one on a PV Predator from the 90s that was in very rough condition, very, very rough, and it had a Gibson humbucker that had been like really poorly spliced into it and stuff, so it took more work out of the box than this is going to take to get it up to a state where I really enjoyed it. But this one was mainly an issue of cleaning and so forth. But I'm going to run through the things I look at when I get a guitar where it's like, I'm going to get this weird or cheap, this listing for this guitar, and take a little bit of a risk on it and gamble on it. What do you look for out of the box when you start getting into it? So stay tuned. We're going to take a look at this Silvertone. So in terms of this particular guitar, it's a cool guitar. I mean, it caught my eye. Again, the listing was very basic and so forth, and the misspelled name, and it's still got a few things. They're funny, like for some reason 2 of the knobs are different styles than the other 2. They're the same black with white letters, but if you look closely, they're different heights because they're different depths. They have different fonts. That's an easy fix. I just got to dig it out, a bag of knobs and so forth. But it's a very cool guitar. It's got a simple classic head shape. I do, really like guitar heads. If they're gonna do 3x3, I like them where they get narrower because that's really actually better on the tuning stability and so forth. And it does have the bolt-on neck. Now it's got, this is the neat thing about this guitar, is that it is like a Les Paul, but like the joke being it has Les Paul in it. Like it's different. It's a different body. It's on the thin side. It's very light. It has a contoured back, which is kind of hard to get a good angle of, but the contour is very, very nice. This reminds me of the newer, like they have the modern body with the Les Paul, with the Epiphones and Gibsons, that you can get a contoured body. And just generally speaking, I feel like the body is just slightly reduced, and overall it's like the contour, for being a cheaper guitar, this has a very, very smooth, very nice contour. Very, very nice. I mean, the body on this is a major selling point because it's similar, again, to a Les Paul, the way that it holds to your body and so forth, but it is distinctive. And I like when companies don't just copy a model. Like here's a Telecaster that just looks like a Telecaster, that looks like a Telecaster, and I love Telecasters, and I'll probably still buy one. But I really like when companies step out and take a classic design but modify it. And that's one of the ways that the smaller guitar companies can distinguish themselves. By making design element changes to add comfort, playability, and various features that you don't find in the traditional classic model. That is a way to distinguish themselves. And this is really cool. Another thing is that you see of course it's got the black body, but it's a metallic flake. It's really hard to get on camera. Let me get in here. There you go. See, it's got metallic flake in there. It's a very subtle flake that in bright circumstances. I also need to polish it some more here. I've been starting with the various stages of restoration that I do. A lot of it involves polishing and cleaning. Just in honesty, you can find some tremendous deals out there just because the guitar is dirty. There was a 1980s probably Les Paul style, that it might have been late 70s even, that I had, that was great guitar, and I bought it for dirt cheap because it was really rough, it was rusty, it was a Japanese model, and it was rusty, and it had, a couple of the bridge saddles were missing and stuff, but for the price of a new bridge saddle setup and putting some new strings on it and just cleaning it up, I more than doubled the cost of the guitar, because I sold it for more than double what I bought it for, and even that was a good price. What I sold it to the fellow was still a very good price for that guitar, because it was a vintage. It played fantastic once I got it all worked out. And so those deals are out there. There's a lot of that out there if you're willing to look for it. And I do believe I've scored another one of these, because this is a very, very nice guitar. And it's only minimally worn in terms of, it has some scratching on it, but here is the difference between storage scratches and play scratches. Play scratches are what guitarists call belt rash, where you get a lot of light scratches right here from belt buckles and various, buttons and whatever that are scratching it as it's on the body of the guitarist. You get a lot of scratches there. Storage scratches, where it's in a closet or something, are just light scratches everywhere else. I mean, it's just they're not in a, and the same thing with the front. If there was a lot of light scratches here, because there's no pick guard, so I can look and see there's not a lot of scratches on here. In fact, I'm really not seeing any, just about none. So this guitar has not really been played all that much. It's been stored, so there is one chip on the bottom. And this is part of what you do when you get the guitar, is you just look at everything. You look it all over and see what's what. And this only has that one bit of damage, and again, it was probably from getting kicked into a closet or set down a little too hard or something. you know, clipped up against it, but it's just a small paint chip, and I've smoothed it down with mostly, I don't recommend trying to resurface like paint, you know, match color and everything. I don't generally recommend that because it almost always looks worse after than before in terms of, in my opinion, and this is aesthetics, but in my opinion, a relict, as in I smooth it down and clear coat it, and so it's not rough and it's not going to cause any further damage and that sort of thing. Relicking damage is the preferred method, in my opinion, and in many guitarists' opinions, because it shows wear, it shows that, you know, it's been out there and it's lived a life. It adds this kind of flavor to it, but it's, you know, it's not affecting the playability in the slightest. It's a tiny little nick, right? It's a tiny little boop out of there. And so it doesn't affect anything, but rather than try to match the paint and get a good finish and try to get everything to bond together right, and it's, and then, you know, it's almost certainly not going to look identical unless you are a master painter and you know exactly how to get matching paints. Very, very difficult, especially on vintage stuff where you have the addition of time mixed in there. My preference is generally to relic. I don't artificially relic my guitars. I don't hammer at them or set them on fire or anything. I don't artificially relic them, but particularly when I'm dealing with vintage examples, I don't repaint over them. Generally speaking, I will try to just relic the damage. So, so that's something to be looking at, is what kind of damage you have. Inspecting things like the neck is very, very important for damage. And this, again, I do not believe has been played very much, because it is, the neck is, it's very nicely buffed and smooth, and I waxed everything up as I've been working on it and cleaning on it. There's one little just tiny scratch, little teeny nick there, but I think that's just, again, a storage scratch. I don't believe any of this is from play. There's no wear in the typical signs. Signs of play, you might get pitting on the fretboard and wear at certain frets and that sort of thing. I don't think this has been played hardly at all in the last 20 odd years. And while I had the, you know, since the strings were off, and generally speaking, especially on rough around the edges guitars, you're going to want to restring it. So, you know, just get those strings off. It gives you better access to the electronics and everything if you want to work on them. Like with this guitar, I haven't even plugged it in yet to play. I've got it tuned up and settled in, but just looking at the humbuckers, they're probably ceramic. They don't have screw buttons. They've just got the dots, and so that's usually a sign of a lower end pickup. But putting pickups into a guitar is very, very easy. Very easy. You just need basic understanding of soldering and wiring, and you can easily replace pickups in a guitar. I love how easy it is to work on guitars. I've worked on a lot of cars in my life, and that's an entire different story, because every car, even if you know how to replace an alternator, replacing an alternator on that car is probably vastly different than the car right next to it. And meanwhile, with guitars, generally speaking, there have been almost no major changes to the basics of wiring since the mid-20th century, since many of these models debuted. And so, generally speaking, unless you're dealing with one of these new, you know, smart guitars or something, it's just 2 or 4 wires coming out of your pickup, and, you know, you're just matching. It's very easy. It's very easy to get into. And again, if you want to learn to do that stuff, get yourself a junker. Get yourself a cheap eBay special or pawn shop special. Get yourself something cheap that if you totally wreck it and you mess it up entirely, you're out $100, and you could just scrap it for parts and, you know, cannibalize it. So $100 investment in a guitar, especially something that's older, that you're kind of rolling the dice on quality, you might get something really cool. You might get something really awesome, and you know, I think this is going to be that case. Again, not that this is not like I found some, you know, thousands of dollars guitar. No, but I think this is a really cool guitar that's got almost no play wear on it. So it's practically like, once I've got it cleaned up and settled in and set up and do all my stuff to it, I think this is going to be a really cool guitar. And again, even if it sounds like junk in terms of the pickups, here's another point of what I do when I am starting to get into looking at a guitar and basically looking at its excellence. Is this worth doing a rebuild, or should I just scrap it for parts? What should I do with it? Is to play it unplugged. And the reason being that you get a sense of the resonance, you get a sense of the pure tonal sound of the guitar, the neck, and so forth, without the pickups and everything that goes along with making tone on the electric side. And this, I've been playing, I got this in yesterday, and I did my initial stuff to it last night, and I've been playing it sitting on the couch, just unplugged, and it has excellent sound. It is making really, really great sound. It sustains really well, and it's got excellent resonance for an electric. And so that tells me that this is a really good guitar. I really like how it feels. This neck and everything, the neck joint is very contoured, and it is really, I say that it's more like a Fender contour. This whole body is more like a Fender contour. It's like they took the Fender contouring and put it on a Les Paul, and that everything is much rounder than you generally find on a Les Paul. It's much closer to a Stratocaster in terms of the rounding on all the edges, which, in my humble opinion, I prefer the Fender contouring. It's just a nicer, softer edge. Just my opinion. Comfort and playability, being an over 40 guitarist, comfort and playability are among my top features, because tone, I can make tone and all this, but is it comfortable to play is going to be some of my first concerns. And this is remarkably comfortable, and it's got a very nice fretboard. I did some fret leveling and nothing was bad. The neck doesn't need any truss adjustment, and I've got the when I set the bridge in and got it all tuned up and everything, I have the action set tremendously low. And it's playing, again, I haven't even plugged it in yet. Now, I will say, the first thing, before I even put another, minute into it, out of the box, I took the body without the neck even on it, and I plugged it in and used the little Allen key, little metal Allen key, to lightly touch boop, 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 all the dots on the pickups and make sure that the pickup selector, that is a way that you can check the electronics before you invest any more time or effort into it. Is you can just, okay, like everything worked. I did the selector, this worked, and then it was on, then it was off. Everything worked fine. So that told me that it is functioning. Before I even put the neck back on it, put strings or anything else on it, it is functioning. And so that was a check mark for me to continue to work on it. And so, after I checked that, I put the neck back on it, and it's got an unusual, it doesn't have a plate, but it has these rather large washers, and the neck joint itself, the heel, is very nice. I'm very impressed with this design, because it has a very, very nice gentle contour, and all of the screws are nicely embedded so that it is nice and flat and very, very comfortable. Again, this is like, Samick was asking, well, how do we take a Les Paul style guitar and how do we make it more comfortable? And I think they really nailed the body is excellent on this. It's very light. It's, while still being quite resonant. And this right here, where your fretting hand meets the neck at the heel, is very comfortable. It's very comfortable, especially for a bolt-on. Bolt-ons have the disadvantage of they can't be totally molded, but this, with the contour, it is super, super nice. I mean, so in terms of longer range, I'm already considering with this guitar upgrading I haven't even plugged it in to see how they sound, but my assumption is, because I've actually got a Gibson humbucker from that PV, and I might just put a Gibson in here, and I've got a PRS Tremonti. That would be a pretty killer combination. And so for $100 guitar, and about $140 worth of pickups, this might be like a killer guitar. And, you know, and this is the kind of stuff that you can do if you get into repair, restoration, rebuilding of guitars. And it is epic. It's so much fun to do. It's like a quest. It's like an adventure. You get this thing out and like, oh, it's crusty and it's all rusted and everything. But once you start getting into it, you're like, this is a nice gem. It's just got to be polished. The other things to be looking at and working on as you're going through it, making sure everything's nice and tight in terms of, for example, the tuners, and make sure that they are good and tight. Check all of the buttons, make sure they're tight, and, you know, just generally speaking, you want to work kind of piece by piece through it, looking at everything, oiling everything as you go, and cleaning it. Very, very good, very important. Using a string cleaner conditioner is really good, not just for the strings, but for all of the hardware, because it is a anti-rust, anti-corrosive. It's a lubricant, and you know, really, really good stuff to put on. Like, I sprayed down the bridge with it, the tailpiece, in addition to working it into the strings after I'd strung it. Another thing, you know, fret leveling and fret work. While I had it off, I went ahead and started doing some more polishing. The frets were good, but, you know, it's a cheaper instrument, so they little rough on the hand. No big deal. And I've got a video on fret polishing, so check that out. Fret polishing is very easy, and it's the kind of thing that if you're doing it right in terms of just lightly working it with a piece of very high grit sandpaper, you can sit and do that in front of the TV, and just gradually, little by little, you'll get really incredibly polished frets. And so that, you know, it definitely needs some more fret polishing. I just filed it down quickly while I had it off and did a little bit of initial polishing, but that's something that you can do over time with it. The fretboard itself, now if you oil it, you want to make sure you wipe the oil off. You don't want the oil to really soak in because it'll soften the wood. I prefer to wax my fretboard. Now I will, you know, also use oils on top of the wax, but I like carnauba wax. I make my own carnauba wax, and if this really launches, and I could start selling it through YouTube store, because it's awesome stuff. I just use carnauba flakes and then various mineral oil and various essential oils, and it makes a excellent, like, I put it on just about everything, everything other than the electronics, and body and everything, and it's great for all sorts of different stuff. Anyway, so I really like to put a nice thick coat of that on the fretboard. The wax will seal it, but it's not going to soften it in the way that just oil, like if you use lemon oil, very typical one, and if you just use lemon oil, it's good, but you want to wipe it off. You don't want it to just sit on there and then soak too much into the wood. You don't want to soften your fretboard, you just want to seal it, and so that's why I think waxing is better. That's just my opinion. And so anyway, I'm going to get this plugged in and play it and see how it sounds. But in terms of, you know, this is a great example of an extremely cheap guitar where somebody presumably just had it in their closet. You know, maybe they're empty nester or something, and their teenager's gone off to college, and they're like, I'm getting rid of this old guitar. It has just been sitting here, and it's just crusty, and, you know, whatever. These are out there. You just have to look for them. And if you find a really good one, then you can get tremendous return for your money. So I am significantly impressed with this guitar. This is the third Samick era Silvertone that I've gotten my hands on, and all three have been really excellent. So if you're out there looking at one of these Silvertone Samicks, 3 for 3 in my opinion. All three of these have been great. I've got this, I've got the Super Strat, and the U2 1303 reissue. Both of those are in my giveaway. So if you haven't already, go and register for my giveaway by subscribing to the channel and go to the featured video and comment there with your name and a general location. We'll get you registered in that. But man, for having Les Paul in it, this is an excellent Les Paul style guitar. I absolutely love it. Now the pickups, they sound really fine. They're better sounding than looking at them I expected them to be, honestly. Usually when you see the lack of poles and everything, it's probably going to be cheapy. It usually is. And this is, I'm sure these are cheapy, but they sound rather good. Now, can they sound better? Absolutely. And I think this is a prime example of one of these cheap, kind of dirty guitars that you can get, fix it up, polish that sucker, and mod it. Like, I might just swap out the electronics, because these knobs are fine, but I'm sure they're probably on the cheaper side, and if I'm replacing that, I might just replace the whole thing. I might just replace the pickups, but I wouldn't need to, in the sense that this guitar already sounds really, really nice. So on the rhythm, I've got the tone dropped right now, and everything's on about 7 to 8, but this is on just a basic. This is the bassman setting. It plays fantastic. I haven't found any spot on the neck that doesn't play right. Everything plays really well. It's got decent tuners. Tuners are easy to change if I want to upgrade, but the pickups, I think, are just the only thing I'm like immediately probably going to change. And they sound good, but I've got some really nice pickups, and this, I think, is going to be one of these guitars that I put some really nice pickups in it and do a little polishing around the edges, and you got a nice guitar for a shoestring budget. It's resonant, it sustains really well. I've got set super low on the action, and yeah, if I strike really hard, I get a little bit of buzz, but there's no like death rattle or dead frets because it's set so low. It plays, fantastic. This is a super cool. Very, it's basic in the sense it doesn't look like it's jumping out at you or anything aesthetically, but it is very comfortable. It's comfortable in the hand, comfortable in the body. It's a little bit neck heavy, but just barely. I get a little bit of neck dive, but I'm not having to do curls to keep the neck up. It's not a huge amount of neck dive. It's very comfortable to play, especially when counterbalanced with my forearm on my right hand there, and it plays really nice. It feels the greatest aspect of this guitar is the body shape and the neck in terms of, so it's very playable. It reminds me of Godin's in the sense of like they've really tweaked everything to make it more comfortable to play. That's a design feature you often find on Godin's as well. And so it's reminding me playability wise of a Godin, which this is an incredibly cheap guitar. Very, very I think these were still, like, even when they were new, they were not expensive guitars. These were budget economy level guitars, but this is a really, really nice guitar. So I think Samick really nailed it. And the stage one going through this has not taken a lot of work. Just cleaning, polishing, oiling, putting things back together, tuning it up, and doing a setup on it is all it really needed. And so this is a great example of a guitar that I got for a tremendous value because I was willing to just put my hands on a dirty, unusual guitar and bring it back and restore it. And otherwise, it's, in terms of its wear and tear, it's just about like a new guitar, a 20-year-old new guitar. So, as always, if you enjoyed my content, please like and subscribe, building the channel, and love hearing from you guys, love reading your comments, so you'll have a wonderful day.